Hello guys, and welcome back to the channel this late evening. I want to talk to you about my Palantir Q1 earnings preview, and I'm not gonna lie, before I started researching this video, I thought that the stock was definitely going to moon after earnings and finally our time has come as shareholders. But I realized I made a core mistake. There is a lot of things that I think is very good for the company, but just because I think they're good for the company, it doesn't mean that Wall Street thinks it's good for the company. And the more I researched this video, I found that there is more chances that there is going to be unfavorable things in the earnings than there is favorable earnings. There is still chance that the stock is going to moon after earnings. I just think that somehow the chance of having a neutral earnings or a somewhat disappointing earnings is bigger, and I'm going to tell you why. But this doesn't mean that the company is doing bad or the stock is not going to moon later. It just gives an extended buying opportunity for long-term investors like you and me. By the way, if you like this video, please make sure you hit like, subscribe to the channel, and say hi to me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is here @VinceIsBullish, and I'm trying to build it up. So if you are from this YouTube channel, please come there, follow me, and say hi. So Tesla earnings, let's go. I just need to move my head out of the picture here. Tesla earnings, what did I say? As I said, late evening, guys. So will Palantir moon after earnings? So I just need to give you a disclaimer. I have been horrible at predicting earnings, and I think it's not a winning game to predict earnings for a company because so many things can happen that mess up how Wall Street perceives the earnings. Even if they report good earnings, but then, you know, car bangs the table, then they send the stock plummeting, or suddenly out of nowhere the company can report GAAP profitability, which no one was expecting, that sends the stock up 20%. So it's not a winning game. However, there is a good setup for earnings because we are going into the earnings on a super bottom of the floor low guidance. The stock price has been trending lower in the last few weeks, and if they just beat the numbers, I think that the stock could and should fly, even if it's temporary, like last time when they reported the GAAP earnings out of nowhere. So I just want to show you, this is the stock price. You can see this is last time they reported earnings, and the market got really enthusiastic for like 2 days, and then the stock came back down to earth because nobody was investing in Palantir for GAAP profitability, especially if not for 1 cent GAAP profitability. I want to show you the guidance. They were guiding for 503 to 507 million in revenue and adjusted income from operations between 91 to 95 million. I know this doesn't mean anything, but I have this magic table where this is basically my Palantir price valuation model that is available to my Patreon subscribers. I think I'm going to also make this available somehow on Twitter. And this is where you can see the valuation model, but now we're just going to look at the quarterly numbers. So the 5.5 million, this is, I took the middle, but even if you take the top 5.7 million, it's going to be a down quarter from Q4, which is the first down quarter for Palantir. And the market is not going to like this. But this is already known, right? So this shouldn't make that the stock price plummets down because this was already known. And even compared to the Q1 earnings of 2022, this is only a 13% increase. You can see that the operating adjusted operating margin, if they again meet in the middle between this 91 to 95 million, the 93 million would be an 18% operating margin, which is not their lowest. Their lowest was in Q3, but you can see it's definitely a trend down on the operating margin. And as for adjusted operating income, it's 23% down compared to Q1 2022. So I really, really hope that they beat this really rock bottom predictions that they have made. So there are a ton of good things happening with the company, right? Alex Karp has come out with a new platform that they're working on. 2 times he has made a shareholder letter. Then he talked about that there is a change in the S&P 500, how one can get included, and previously companies with F shares basically weren't eligible to be even considered for inclusion in the S&P 500, and now Palantir is, and that if they get included, they need 4 profitable quarters. And many of us in the Palantir community speculate that the reason why he came out with this letter because they already know the numbers and they know that they are going to be profitable in Q1, or very soon they will have 4 profitable quarters. And if they get included, that means that funds, the S&P 500 index funds, and so many investors are going to have to buy them that invest into the S&P 500. So that is just automatically going to create a lot of buying pressure. Then the other good things is, again, this AIP platform, the demos, I've done videos on them, they're amazing. Karp repeatedly has said in the shareholder letter that they're seeing very much increased demand. So I think that these are very, very good. Although one thing that you need to keep in mind is that Palantir is not a scalable company in terms of new customers, but once they get a customer, they scale within the customer. So basically what you want to see is them knowing, increasing the customer number, and you know that that is going to result in very good, very high margin income years from now. However, this also means that the problem is, even if they're getting a lot of new customers, it doesn't really immediately show in the income statement and in the profitability and the bottom line, because their existing customers, that's where they scale. They're huge. You know, sometimes they can get 20, 30 million contracts. And when they just begin with a customer and they have like a few $100,000 contract, it doesn't do anything to Palantir's balance sheet. So I was thinking the best way to do this is we will go through the earnings bear case, like what would have to happen for the stock to crash after earnings. That would be really bad for us. And then I'm going to go through what would make the stock price moon after earnings. So if Palantir reports a GAAP loss this quarter, then the market might freak out. So Alex Karp said in the last quarter that they are going to be GAAP profitable for the year, which doesn't mean that they're going to be GAAP profitable every quarter. Now, one thing that is super good, or is an advantage for Palantir, that we heard on CNBC that they have 1.5 billion invested in government bonds, which will give them, it's very late, I don't have the math in my head, probably 50, 60 million boost to their GAAP operating income, right? And this boost might be enough to make them into GAAP profitable. However, they have a tailwind, and that is the SPAC investments that they have made a long time ago. They don't fully disclose which SPAC investments they have and which they don't have. And unbelievably, a lot of the SPAC companies, I was just before going through this video, went through their stock prices and they're still losing value. So they might get a 60 million boost from their government bonds, but they might get a 20, 30 million loss from their old SPAC investments. I don't think that operationally, we're going to see. I would be surprised if just on the operations part of their income statement, they would be profitable. So this would be, for a long-term investor like you and me, it would be like a meh, like we don't care, but the market might freak out because they're not profitable every quarter. Then what happens if Alex Karp bangs the table because he's trying to explain something? This seems to have freaked people out in the past. There has been YouTube videos made on this, so this can very negatively affect the stock, and as I don't know what it does to our long-term thesis, but people have an issue with this. Then if Palantir does worse than they guided for, that would be that the company essentially starts shrinking, and they better have a very good reason why that is, because that is pointing to a further slowdown. And Palantir's price If you look at my valuation model, or you know how to evaluate stocks, you know that a lot of Palantir's price is the implied growth. It's supposed to be a growth company, right? So once you take away this growth, this should be a value company, but a value company that doesn't make any gap income is not really worth a lot. So that would be very bad for the stock. Then, if they give a short-term bad guidance, so this is something that I'm afraid of, because this wouldn't change our thesis as Palantir investors, but it would be very bad for the stock price in the near term. So if they come out and say that we have 50 people lined up for our new platform, we see lots of interest, we have gotten 50 new customers, so they have record new customers, as I said, that would be a super bullish sign for the company, that they have so many new customers because of ChatGPT and such. But it doesn't do anything to the income statement. And I was just, before making this video, listening to the Amazon earnings call where they talked about, AWS slowing. And I think that that is very reflective of, this IT economy, and companies that have a lot of IT and are in the cloud and they need a lot of programming, and Palantir is serving similar customers, and those customers might want to be cutting back on their costs the same way as AWS customers are cutting back. So that would make it so that the market would freak out, the stock price would really plummet, and I'm actually afraid of this version, even though you can clearly see that when they get a ton of new customers, and then there is a ton of new interest in the product, that they are going to have a high increase of very high profit margin services in the future. But the market currently doesn't care about that. And so for long-term investors, that would be a very good buying opportunity. And I think that this scenario would really test the Palantir community. You would really start seeing who is the diamond hand, who really think the long term and believe in the thesis, and who are the traders who are paper handling this stock. If there would be a slowdown in customer numbers and a further slowdown in their net dollar retention, that would be also very bad, and even might mess with our thesis, right? So this is I'm not saying that this is going to happen, this is the bear case. I think what is likely to happen from this is cart banging on the table. Don't think it means anything, and I'm very afraid of this short-term bad guidance that they say that we see further slowdown in Q2, Q3, but then we think that we're going to go back towards this 20-30% increase. The market would not like that. Let's just put it this way. Then there is the bull case for earnings. So Palantir might easily beat the earnings. We didn't talk about this because we were going into the negatives, but they have been announcing some new partnerships. Karp said in the shareholder letter that they have a lot of interest in this new AIP platform. So what if they managed to upsell their already existing customers and they were able to, get in new income that they were not planning with? That would be really good. Then, and the second thing that would be really good for the stock is if they give guidance where they show re-accelerating growth. So we already know that this quarter the guidance is really rock bottom, right? But if they would come out and say that, okay, instead of 2.2 billion, because of the interest that ChatGPT cost and the interest for our new platform, we think that we're going to hit 2.4 billion this year, and they revised the adjusted operating income, that would be super good for the stock. And again, honestly, there's a chance that this might happen. Then another thing that would be super bullish for the stock, and I hope they spend a lot of time on discussing this, is that they disclose who is a customer for their new AIP platform. Is it their current customers who want to extend and buy more of their services, or is it that the existing customers are canceling Foundry and Gotham and they're switching over to AIP because it's cheaper for them, or they have basically they have been upselling their current existing customers, so this is like a revenue growth opportunity, and they have a lot of new customers lined up. And this is a very scalable, easy to implement a product that is going to give them a lot of extra income that they were not thinking with. Then Karp already said that they're accelerating the timeline and the rolling out of this AIP. So does he mean that they went from the next 5 years to the next 3 years, or they went from, like next year to next quarter? This is really, really important. And also, like, what does management expect as for numbers on AIP? Is it going to be a new multi-billion-dollar platform, or is it just a small upsell for customers? And by the way, I talked about this in earlier videos, that to use Palantir Foundry, you do need training and you do need to be very smart, and have some programming skills. But now the whole organization can use it. Every employee, literally. So let's say we take Tyson Food, and then they had maybe 5,000 people using Foundry, but with this new AIP, they are able to almost give it to the whole organization. I don't know how many employees they have, but let's say they have 40,000 employees, and all those 40,000 employees will be able to use this. And if Palantir is charging per the users, I don't know if they do, and if they charge per the traffic or queries that these users make, then that would be a very significant increase in Palantir's income that nobody was counting with. So it's very important that management discloses what do they expect from this new AIP. And that was the full bull case. So anything can happen. It's a very bad game to bet on earnings. I've been burnt by this, so I'm not gonna say or bet on what's going to happen. I do think that I'm very afraid of this version, that they see a short-term slowdown in Q2 and Q3 and then a re-acceleration thereafter. The market is really going to hate that one. I really hope that they can just beat the numbers and give nice guidance and really disclose a lot of details so that we as investors can think about this new product and think with the valuations. But anyways, let me know in the comments, what do you think, and will you sell if Palantir has a further slowdown, or will you hold and maybe even buy more shares? Let me know on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.